Hi there. Welcome back to vSkul. This is Module 3 of our live Claude AI for Everyday Nigeria. And again, pardon me for having me alone in this session. The class held in the morning, the class held in the morning, but somehow I forgot to turn on my this is my mic here, and the actual live recording I was doing wasn't recorded. The students were hearing me in a different way, but the actual recording I did, screen recording, wasn't properly captured. Audio wasn't there. Hence, I'm repeating the entire video alone, right? So please bear with me on that. Okay, so in this module, we're going to cover deep research and analysis. Deep research and analysis, and it's basically on business research, market analysis, document summarization, and verification. Okay, so permit me to turn on the screen sharing, and so I can load my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, now I need to zoom it. I'm looking at this other screen because that is where my slide is. So I need to zoom it so everything will show clearly. Okay, now we've talked about a lot in the module 2. We talked about document preparation using Claude, and a lot was discussed. So the lecture is on YouTube and also on our platform. Whichever is convenient for you, feel free to watch there. It's free. And now we proceeding to this other one. And in this module, we're going to cover research. We're going to cover basically on what I would say research is the foundation of informed decision making. Whether you are evaluating a business opportunity, preparing for an important meeting, writing an academic paper, or simply trying to understand a complex topic, the quality of your research determines the quality of your decisions. So this module will teach you how to use Claude to conduct comprehensive, structured research on any topic in a fraction of the time it would have taken manually, right? So our focus, or rather the focus sections we're going to cover in this module include marketing research, summarizing documents, and verification and quality, right? So we'll go on the first one, which is mastering research with Claude AI, and we involve building the research skills that make Claude an exceptionally powerful tool for Nigerian professionals, right? So how to frame, the first lesson we're going to talk about here is how to frame a research request for maximum quality, right? Now, the difference between a research request that produces generic, unhelpful content and one that produces a genuinely useful research briefs comes down to 4 elements, specifically about the topic, clarity about your purpose, definition of scope and depth, and specification of the output format. Specificity means giving Claude enough detail to know what angle to take. For example, research agriculture in Nigeria is too broad, very, very broad. Though it can still be useful, but it's very broad. It's too broad to be useful. Research the market for cassava processing business in southern Nigeria, including demand trend, key buyers, processing technology available in Nigeria, access to finance, and the main risk. This gives Claude a clear scope to work with. This gives Claude a clear scope to work with, right? You see the clarity. Now, clarity about purpose changes how Claude presents information. Research for a presentation to investors is framed differently from research to support a a personal decision, which is different again from research for an academic paper. Tell Claude who the research is for and how it will be used. Scope and depth specification prevents you from getting either too little or too much. For example, give me a comprehensive overview of what? And then give me a one-page summary. We produce dramatically different output. For most professional purposes, specifying the desired length, for example, 500 words, 500 word brief, a 10-point structured analysis, a 2-page detailed review gives you the right amount of data you want. Now, format specification shapes how easy the research is to use. Ask for sections with the headings, bullet points, summaries, comparison tables, or structured analysis depending on how you plan to use the findings. Research presented in sections with a clear headings is far easier to act on than a wall of undefinited text. In this lesson, you will practice the 4-element research request framework on 3 topics relevant to your own work, progressively refining each request until you achieve the output quality you need. Okay? So, and the 4 elements specifically include specificity, purpose, scope and depth, format. Now, if you look at the first one, it means specificity. It means give Claude enough detail to know what angle to take. Not research agriculture, but a precise scope. Research agriculture on this and that with the specification of the basic agri-product, location, and other details, right? Tell Claude who the research is for. Is it for the student? Is it for an institution? Is it for an investor? Is it for basic information? Now, the scope and depth also important. Then the format. I put it in sections and then in headings, bullet points, or comparison tables. All of that will help Claude to put a well-professional, compelling document that you can present anywhere at any time with boldness and confidence. Now, on lesson 2, we're going to talk about business and market research using Claude. This is very important as well. And our text that says, market research is essential for any serious business decision. But commissioning business market research in Nigeria is expensive. A good research report from a consultant can cost 500,000 to 2 million. Claude does not replace specialist primary research. Of course, no. Surveys, focus groups, field data collections. But for secondary research, understanding an industry, sizing a market, analysis competition, and assessing feasibility, Claude can produce comprehensive, well-organized findings that will otherwise require days of reading and synthesis, right? So it does not take away the work of core vendors and their specific research when it comes to some level of detail. But in general, understanding an industry, sizing a market, analyzing competition, and assessing visibility are areas that AI, specifically Claude, can help, right? So market sizing research with Claude involves asking it to synthesize available information about the size, growth rate, and structure of a market. Claude can draw on statistics from sources like the National Bureau of Statistics, World Bank data, industry associations, and international reports it was trained on. The limitation to knowledge is that specific figures need verification, which means although it can give you all of this information, you also need to verify yourself to be sure, right? Use Claude to build the framework and identify the key indicators, then verify the numbers from primary sources. When you use Claude to get all these details, do the verification yourself to be sure that the value or data, the number it has given you are correct. You don't assume that they are correct based on what it says, because the values or the data or the report may have changed, over time, but what is given you may be the stale detail. Meanwhile, a recent detail was released maybe a few days ago, and that has not been made public yet. Okay, so this is very important. Now, the next is competitor analysis is one of Claude's stronger research capabilities. Given the name of your industry and location, Claude can identify the major players, their positioning, their typical pricing, their strengths and weakness, and gaps in the market that represent opportunities. This analysis is drawn from Claude training data. You will not get information that is not publicly known, but for most Nigerian industries, substantial public information exists. Okay? Now, lastly on this page is visibility assessment combines market research, operational analysis, and financial estimation. When you describe a business idea to Claude and ask for a visibility assessment, it will examine market demand, competitive dynamics, startup requirements, regulatory considerations, and raw financial visibility. This is particularly valuable at the early stage of consideration, a new business or entering a new market, right? So these are the areas Claude can help you, especially when it comes to available details in the public space. But again, when it comes to core data, numbers, Claude encourages that you, on your own, do the verifications. Be sure that the value it has given you, the numbers it has given you, are the most recent and updated record. So you don't work with a stale information and assume it is correct, right? Okay, now business and market research we've talked about, of course, include market sizing, synthesizing MBS, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, World Bank, and industry. Okay, now Claude again can help you when it comes to competitor analysis. Okay, now let me give more light on this. You want to start up a business and you know that the business you want to start already has other players in the market. Now, how do you ascertain that you will be able to outsmart or to get more customers or clients to yourself where they already engage with the other with your competitor? So now using Claude, it will help you do that analysis to know their strength and weakness and area you can come in, and the gaps that exist in their business you can take advantage of, and then use that to put that as your limelight in your business, right? So this is very, very key. Then visibility assessment. What is the demand? What is the competition out there? What is the startup requirements? And financial visibility. So this is very important. I use a lot on this. It has been useful to me, and hence the reason why I'm sharing it with all of us out there in the public. Okay? So now we get into lesson 3, And lesson 3 here focuses on academic and technical research with Claude. Academic and technical research with Claude. I know you're going to find it very useful, especially for those of us in the academic world. Yeah, so this is going to be very, very useful for us. Now it says academic research has specific requirements that differ from business. It must engage with scholarly literature, cite sources appropriately, follow methodological standards, and contribute to existing knowledge. Claude is exceptionally valuable for academic work, but it must be used thoughtfully to avoid the serious academic integrity risk of AI misuse, right? You don't depend it completely. You have your own part to play. The appropriate use of Claude for academic work is as a research aid, not as a ghost writer, right? Using Claude to write your thesis or research paper and submitting it as your own work is academic fraud and can result in serious consequences because you do not know what you submitted. It didn't come out from your head. No, it didn't come out from your head. The appropriate uses are understanding complex literature, getting explanations of concepts and theories, generating research questions, reviewing your own writing for clarity, getting feedback on your argument structure, and researching background context for your topic. That is where Claude and other AIs apply, but not them doing the entire work for you and then you submit it and claim is your work. The knowledge is not yours. For literature review, Claude can provide an overview of the major theoretical frameworks, key scholars, and research directions in any field, helping you understand the landscape before you begin your deep reading. This is particularly valuable for postgraduate students who are new to a field and need to develop a mental map quickly. For research methodology, Claude can explain different research approaches, help you understand why certain methods are appropriate for your research. So for your research questions, explain statistical concept and analysis, techniques, and help you think through the validity and reliability implications of different design choices. For technical subjects, engineering, for example, medicine, law, finance, economics, Claude can translate complex technical materials into comprehensible language, explain the relationship between concepts, work through technical problems step by step, and provide context that help specialists as well as non-specialists understand difficult materials, right? So this and many more are out there for us to use Claude for, right? So if you've not been using Claude in these regards, I encourage you to please start now. It's really, really going to be useful for you in the future. Learn it, practice it, and make it a useful tool for your use. I tell you, you will never regret it. Okay, so let's now review what we have done. So far, we have talked about academic and technical research, and as you can see, we have appropriate use versus misuse. Appropriate, understand complex literature, getting concept explanations, generating research questions, and then misuse, using Claude to write your thesis or paper and submitting it as your work. This is academic fraud, as we've talked about earlier, right? So in this section, we've talked about 4-element framework. Claude replaces 500K plus work, and Claude is a research aid. And then you can get methodology guidance, and statistic concept explanation from Claude, right? So now we'll get into summarizing and analyzing long documents, which as you can see here, you build the skills of using Claude to rapidly process, summarize, and extract insight from long documents, annual reports, government papers, legal documents, policy circulations, and research papers. Okay, now, talking about summarizing government report and policy document as lesson 4, we focus more on the Nigerian government and regulatory bodies, which we know produce enormous volumes of documents. CBN Monetary Policy Committee, FIRS tax circulars, SEC regulations, NCC directives, Ministry of Finance budget documents, National Economic Council report, and more. These documents are important for Nigerian professionals to understand, but they are long, technical, and written in bureaucratic language that makes reading them time-consuming. Claude transformed this experience completely. You paste the documents or the most relevant sections of it into Claude and ask for a targeted summary. The key to getting a useful summary rather than generic one is to ask for specific elements rather than, sorry for that, please. Okay, the key to getting a useful summary rather than a generic one is to ask for specific element rather than just summarize this. When you say summarize this, it will summarize the entire document, but that may not give you the specific information you want. For a CBN monetary policy circular, you might ask, summarize what changed, what the new requirements are, what the effective date is, and what action is a licensed bank need to take to comply. For a government budget document, you might ask, summarize the key changes that affect businesses, tax measures, sector allocations, infrastructure spending, and any regulatory changes. For a court judgment, you might ask, summarize the facts, the court reasoning, and the final decisions in a plain language. This, the technique of asking for specific element applies across all document types. Rather than asking Claude to summarize a document, ask it to extract specific pieces of information you actually need. This produces far more useful output than a general summary. An important limitation for very long documents over approximately 100,000 words or 200 pages, you might need to paste sections rather than the full document due to Claude's context window limits. The free plan has smaller context window than paid plan. For most Nigerian business and government documents, the free plan is sufficient. So in this lesson 4, we've talked about summarizing government report and policy document. As you can see, paste the document, ask specifically, get plain language, verify if needed. Okay? So getting into lesson 5, which of course involves analyzing annual reports, financial statements, and research papers. Annual reports, financial statements, and research papers contain valuable information, but extracting that value requires either professional expertise or a significant time investment. Claude bridges this gap, enabling any professional to get meaningful insight from this complex document. Annual report, on the other hand, from Nigerian companies, particularly those listed on the Nigerian Exchange Group, contain a wealth of information about industry trend, competitive dynamics, management strategy, financial health, and risk factors. Claude can analyze an annual report and extract the executive assessment of the business environment, key strategic priorities, financial performance highlights, major risk, and forward-looking commentary, producing an producing an intelligence brief in the format most useful for your purpose. Now, the next is financial statement. The income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement follow accounting conventions that are opaque to non-accountant. Claude can explain what any line item means, calculate key ratio, profitability ratio, liquidity ratio, leverage ratio, efficiency ratio. Then interpret what those ratios indicate about the business financial health and compare performance across periods. You do not need an accountant qualification to do this. You need Claude and the financial statement. Then for research papers, Claude can extract the research questions, methodology, key findings, and conclusions, and explain them in language appropriate for a non-specialist. This is particularly valuable for professionals who need to stay current with research in their field, but do not have time for deep academic reading, right? So in principle, in analyzing annual report, financial statements, and research papers, Claude can help with all of that, right? With all of that, as you can see in this summary. Right? The next, which is of course the last section we're going to go into now, is basically in section 2, we've learned about to ask for specific element from any document, not a generic summary. You find more value. And Claude can decode CBN circular, budget document, and court judgment in plain language, extract strategic intelligence from any NGX listed company, then finally explain financial statements, line items, and calculate key ratios for you, right? Now, lastly, we're going to talk about research verifications and quality control. The habit that separates reliable AI-assisted research from unreliable output. And what does that mean? Verifying Claude research. Who know what to check and where. Claude is an extraordinarily capable research assistant, but it is not infallible. Its knowledge has a cutoff date. It can occasionally produce plausible sounding but incorrect statistics, and its information on very recent development in Nigeria may be incomplete. Developing good verification habits protects you from making decisions based on incorrect information. Now, the highest risk information types in Claude's outputs are specific numerical statistics, population figures, market size estimates, economic indicators, specific financial data, dates and timelines where a law was amended, when a regulation came into force, and citations. Claude should not be your source for who specifically said something or the exact text of a statute. For statistical data, the authoritative Nigerian source to use for verification are the National Bureau of Statistics, which of course is known as NBS, and you can see their site there. For economic and demographic data, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, for financial and monetary data, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and NGS for capital market-related data, and FIRS for tax-related figures, including the state IRS too. For international data, the World Bank page, IMF article, and UNDP Nigeria country data are all reliable because they house the data and they update them at any time. You know, for Nigerian law and regulations, the authoritative source is always the official gazette or the text of the act itself. Claude will explain the law accurately in most cases, but for specific provisions, penalty amount, or recent amended restrictions, verify against the law of the Federation of Nigeria. Of course, you can see their website there and other gazettes as well. Then for recent development, cross-reference with Nigerian newspapers of record, The Punch, This Day, Vanguard, Business Day, The Cable, and with the press releases of the relevant government agency. Claude knowledge and development in the last 12 or 18 months may be incomplete or absent. Okay, so note what to verify and the sources to verify them from. So you don't assume that what Claude gave you is the most correct, most reliable information. No, that could lead to trouble, right? That could lead to trouble. So in everything we have talked about, for section 1, the 4-element research framework and market academic research, Claude can help you on that. Section 2, we talked about summarizing government report, annual report, and financial statements. Then section 3, we talked about knowing what to verify and exactly where to check them, right? Now, your practice, use the 4-element framework to research something relevant to your work. Paste a real document that you want Claude to summarize for you, whatever it is, just for purpose of learning. Then 3, verify one statistic from a Claude response against an official Nigerian source, just as a way of also learning to be sure that you're getting the right report. Then finally, write down one question for module 3, which of course is finance and business advisory. We're going to talk about this in our next session, right, which is coming up next Saturday. So thank you for joining us. See you next Saturday as we take up module 3.